Greetings! It's I, Tian Xia of Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor, here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome once more. We're talking about tabletop. I can only hope that perhaps you are joining me live here on Twitch, but if you're not, I hope you're enjoying this video up on YouTube when it comes up later. Yes, we're going to be diving into the Pathfinder world once more of Golarion, and we're diving into our Gazetteer, I never get that word correctly. We're visiting another country. Now, the only thing I'm going to preface about this visit to a country today is actually a little different than I do when I visit these countries, is we might have to come back here. Now, I have chosen today to talk about Minkai, a country in the continent of Tian Xia. Now, the thing about that is, well, there's a major Tian Xia book, couple of books coming out that's probably going to introduce a lot about these countries and stuff and include a lot more. But why am I then talking about Minkai now and not waiting? Well, because of many of the Tian Xia countries in Tian Xia, Minkai is one that we know a lot about. Because, and I'm going to show you, there was an adventure path that involved it. The Jade Regent adventure path. So it is one that we actually have a pretty good chunk of information about. Enough to talk about it. And yes, will more stuff come out probably in the Tian Xia book? Yeah. But again, I'm not trying to go over every detail of these places. I'm trying to go over some generalizations, some information. I'm using a combination, as I always do, of another sources of books and the Pathfinder Wikipedia combined together, using that as a kind of outline and increasing it. So let's talk about those sources, though, because, again, that's a great place to talk, and especially when we're going to mention about these. And so the Dragon Empire's Primer is a book that you want to check out for this. The Pathfinder Chronicles campaign settings. And I'm going to be honest, I'm only showing the one here, the Jade Regent Player's Guide. But honestly, using a lot of stuff from the Jade Regent entire adventure path would be good. Granted, not all the adventure path is going to be stuff related to Minkai, but because the main plot line of it involves Minkai directly and involves you going there directly and doing adventures there directly, it means that, yes, Jade Regent's a really good source of it still. And these are our best sources aren't necessarily great, as, you know, improvements can be made in the second edition. But that's why I'm also going to shout out two books which are not out yet and should be coming out late this year, early next year. And that's, of course, the Tian Xia World Guide, which is a coming soon book, and, of course, the Tian Xia Character Guide. The World Guide is probably one I'm going to really shout out more than the other, because that's going to include some information in Minkai and many other Tianian countries. So, this is something that maybe I will revisit Minkai, depending on what they kind of show off here. But I get the feeling that perhaps I will have enough here to share with you to make this a very reasonable explanation and story about Minkai. Extra history, you know, extra information on some of the regions, cities, and stuff like that could be put out with that book. And even some maybe corrections can sometimes happen when it comes to building upon the information as it's developed over the, well, decades of, working on decades now of Pathfinder material coming out. At least decades worth. So, let's dive into Minkai, though. Minkai is found on Tian Xia. It was one of the few nations that did not submit to Imperial Longhua during their existence. And they're known for samurai, stealthy ninjas, and honorable cultural identity. Minkai, if you first look at it and you hear about it, feels very, I'm going to not lie about this, Japan. It isn't. It's its own thing, but it is comparable in a lot of ways because of, well, for a combination of reasons. A major reason is, of course, there's this connection in, like, to Earth and stuff. Earth is a parallel material plane, technically, so certainly there is some parallels there. You can travel to Earth and stuff like that, and a lot of cultures as they appear throughout the Pathfinder world of Golarion do have similarities to a lot of Earth cultures. They are uniquely different still, but again, this is one of those ones that when I say it's known for samurai, ninjas, and honorable cultural identity, it really screams connections there a lot more than others. I mean, the Assyrians scream Egyptians, and they literally worship the Egyptian deities who were also the Assyrian deities that, traversed from Earth to Assyria. But that's, we talked about that in that episode, so go check that out when you want to hear about that kind of weird cultural connections where they're very similar. Anyway, let's just leave that on the table for now. It's also known as the Empire of Dawn, the Land of the Three Fires, the Minkai Empire. And we're going to dive into who's in charge there, the religion stuff. But they've got their own language, Minkai. They also speak Tianian, which is the kind of general language of Tian. Anyway, the earliest histories of Minkai dates back to 100 AR, when the goddess Shizuru bestowed divine blessing on 5 imperial families who would come to rule Minkai for the next 4,000 years. They were the Amatsu, Higashiyama, Shojinawa, Sujimatu, and Teikoku. Years after this event, in 112 AR, the Teikoku clan formed the Teikoku Shogunate, which was a precursor to the modern Shinkai that lasted for 3,500 years. In 290 AR, the samurai Zokokyu established Minkai's northern border with the Forest of Spirits when his army was destroyed by the force of an irate kami there. So effectively, they had a mystical land barrier that was to their north that really kept them in their region. What is known as Minkai now was formed in 3616 AR, which, just as a head note, in Golarion terms, in Pathfinder terms, it's 4823. It's always 48 plus the year we are in, for connecting to these things. The perfect swordsman, Setsuna Kuga, as they were known, founded Minkai. The Teikoku had ruled for about 3,000 years, and most of the time been known as honorable rulers, but by the time of Setsuna, basically the honor had kind of rotted away, a lot of corruption in the Teikoku clan, and they couldn't be tolerated anymore. Setsuna defeated the forces of the Teikoku Shogunate in the Battle of 8 Bridges in 3616, and Minkai was formed 3 years later in 3619. The old capital of Udo was razed during the war, and a new capital was established in the city of Kasai, where it's remained ever since. In 4559 AR, an organization known as the Golden League rose to prominence, gaining complete control of Minkai and their economy for a decade before being banished in 4571. So, nothing much else about the this criminal organization, though they had some control for a while, to keep that in mind. Now, we switch to some information that's important. The Jade Regent, which that's the Jade Regent, the guy in the big armor. At least the last one. So for about 1,000 years, it was relatively peaceful. And in the 47s, Minkai was close to exploding into an all-out civil war. Many of the smaller islands, once controlled by the Empire, declared their independence. The successor of the Sakura throne, the Emperor Shigure Higashiyama, was imprisoned in 4705 by the Higashiyama clan in their compound near the edge of the capital, supposedly to protect him. It was due to the clan's strength that war didn't break out immediately, but there was a growing movement to release him from the hold on the emperor, either by freeing him or killing him. They was replaced by a temporary ruler to quell the instability of the country called the Jade Regent, who was quite unpopular. Now, basically a usurper to the throne, the Jade Regent. Yeah. So, Shigure, the emperor, was then killed in 4708. So, when the Jade Regent, when Toshihiro, who's Soto Toshihiro, became the Jade Regent, basically took over, he did kill the Emperor. And spread the stories of going into hiding, effectively. And there was a lot of issues related that, and then eventually, though, a relative has basically taken the Jade Throne, in the current version of it, which happens in the Jade Regent book. So, yes, in the Jade Regent book, we have the death of Higashima Shiguri and Soto Takehiro, who was technically defeated. He was trying to like remove the last the throne. The Jade Throne did not accept Soto Takehiro as the new emperor, and it required this entire thing of the Jade Throne not accepting there. And in 4711, a adventurer turned bartender turned main character or important NPC from the Rise of the Rune Lords, the first adventure path, Minako Kaijitsu, turned out to be the last legitimate threat to the Minkai throne, and you help her ascend to it in the Jade Regent book. Yeah. Recovers the family sword, embarks on a journey for Vasti through the crown of the world to the forest of spirits. She earns the support of the Minkai's populace, with blessings of previous emperors, and was accepted by the Jade Throne as the rightful empress of Minkai. And she visited Absalom in 4720 to participate in the Radiant Festival and bolster trade and communications with other nations, because she was technically born in not in Minkai, in Sandpoint in Varesia, because her family, which was one of the families blessed by the goddess Shizuru, had been driven out of Minkai by vengeful Oni. Yes. So that is a storyline for what happened to their family. I have to check which family she is member of. House Kaijitsu was the Amatatsu family. So she was part of the Amatatsu family from Minkai. She was one of the last remaining members of it. She technically has siblings, but they're half siblings that are born out of the family kind of a little bit. So she has other people that are could possibly take over the thing. She's got like a half sister. But honestly, so let's talk about the government and where it currently stands. Where we have that's a better picture of her there. Amiko there, as she stands. That's her as an adventurer. So the government consists of 8 provinces, each ruled by an imperial governor who's responsible for ensuring the emperor's rule is upheld. Provinces grow from their influence on hinterlimbs of major cities in each county. The province is named after the city. The city is the capital and the seat of power. There are 3 regions which are more independent and fall outside sway of an imperial governor. So the provinces are as follows with their cities, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them just a little bit. We'll go over the first one. Akafuto and Akafuto Province. Let's talk about them for a second. Akafuto is in western Minkai. Its current ruler is... its current, basically, imperial governor is Moniwa Kamon. Yep. Akafuto is the second largest port city near the mouth of the Tagiru River. It's basically the major part of the lumber trade for Tian Xia. They export a large variety of raw and unfinished goods. The city's junks are seen commonly in Minkai shops in foreign ports, particularly in Tianjin. Its most famous temple is Ukushiji, dedicated to the god of prosperity, Kufushachi, who's said to bless good harvests and crafts. It's home to the Juhumeyu School, a monastic institution who trains young nobles looking for work in the imperial court. It has pretty good political stability and is ruled by a member of the Moniwa family for quite some time, for over a millennia. So that's the first of them. Then there's Enganoka province in Enganoka, of course. It was in western Minkai with its ruler Shikutsu Sanaka. That's about as much as we have on that one, so that's one of those ones that they can always provide more information. Husai in the Husai province is in eastern Minkai. We do not have the name of the, of course, imperial governor of this region there, but Husai as a city is on the Okayo Ocean. And it's known as the Eastern Treasury of Minkai. It's got rich copper mines that sit to the south of the city. It's regularly attacked by the Siyokyo, which are eel-like aberrations that dwell amongst the coral-encrusted ruins of Sankoshi. So the harbor guard and local samurai train endlessly with polearms to repel aquatic attacks. And that's you're good there. There's Kasai, which is the capital, and the Kasai province, of course. And the ruler is no longer the Jade Regent, but it's the Emperor now that the Jade Regent has been removed. It is in the southwestern Minkai. And Kasai is, of course, the capital. It's been for some time. It's a major metropolis. Sits in the south of the peninsula, just north of the Kamiteki River. And Kasai is the heart of the province. Kasai Harbor has deep waters and abundant of fish. Has 3 peripheral areas. The Hitsugi District, which is unofficially governed by Yakuza. Red Lantern District, which is the entertainment district. And the Reeds, which is a shady town. Emperor rules there. And yeah, the Empty Throne stuff is a very good place to look into that one. There's Oda and Oda province, which is known as the Granary of Minkai. It's southeastern Minkai. The imperial governor's name isn't known. The city of Oda itself is the highest amount of immigrants from other TNZ countries. Mostly farmhands were recruited by landowners, merchants, artisans, and restaurateurs who seek to support their communities back home. Organized crime is influential here. Bandits preying among people head into the city. Yakuza running secret rackets. Pirates watching for lightly defended merchant ships sailing too near to the Ogatio Islands. So, there's the Sakakabe province and Sakakabe. It is northwestern Minkai. It's famous for its silver and pearls. Sakakabe is a coastal town. It's a favorable landing on a treacherous coastline. It's constructed on a series of steep, concentric terraces that extend from the port to the top of hills, where rich houses are built. Lower terraces lean on ruins of storm fortresses built millennia ago. Ancient stone walls have images of ancient warriors, and many are hidden by modern structures. It's known for its entertainment district, or Hanamachi, being built on one of the highest terraces, centered on a large street called the Way of the Songbird. It has a middle class that enjoys a high standard of living. It has a fair number of temples, shrines, theaters, and cultural significant locales, which are a pride for its populace. The wealth also has a lenient attitude from its governor, which means there's Yakuza in the area, involved in most of its traditional activities, including gambling. The openness and appeal of gambling games have made the town attractive to visitors, and it has given the city's single Yakuza group a measure of legitimacy. So silver and as a pearls, I said, were a major thing, including the city here. The silver mines near Senyokdai Mountains and the former northwestern coast. There's oysters and conchs and coral reefs and natural lagoons. So yeah. And then we've got Shigokabe province in Shokabe. Again, we don't know a lot about this one, other than it lies in southern Minkai along the Sorui Gulf. Yeah. And then there's the Wanshi province. Of course, at the city of Wanshi. It's in southern Minkai along the Sorui Gulf. Also, it's famous for its sake, sochu, and wine. And a lot of tanuki make their home here. Yes, the three other regions, to mention them, we're diving depth into a lot of these areas and their stuff here, is the Ikaku Peninsula, which is a semi-autonomous region that owes its fealty to Minkai. These are all semi-autonomous regions. It's the far northeast of the country. It's sparsely inhabited. It's proud but tough people. They mine the Kamifutsushi Mountains which run down the center of the peninsula. North of the Kamishika Range is Mount Kumijinja, which has an entrance to the Darklands, layer of Narvoth, known as the Goth Pass. In 470 AR, a General Ishada Aiko led an expedition there. No survivors. There were almost no survivors, and after his army stumbled out into the outskirts of the Oni city of Shirogoku. There's a lot of hot springs in the mountain range there, with healing properties. These springs often have temples to Desna, Kufushachi, Kuizong, and unlike a lot of other locations, nobody in the peninsula has attempted to profit from these healing springs. It didn't suffer very much under the Jade Regent. They're staunch traditionalists who oppose the immoral reforms of the Jade Regent. They harbored rebels and fugitives from the region in this region, because they didn't really suffer for much in their outskirts there. And once per generation, a vast and ghostly kaiju called Jakabu visits the peninsula. A whale-like kaiju. Why have kaiju are a thing? Just keep that in mind, as in the back of your mind. They are a monster type, and they are giant monsters. They're basically Godzilla-level monsters. Anyway, a few weeks before Jakubu's appearance in the seas around, Ikaku becomes still in haunting moan for everything. Then it emerges from the ocean, surrounded by undead seagulls, flying fish, and strange ocean creatures. For 3 days, the people of Ikaku extinguish all lights except a parade of torches that leads to the peak of Mount Kumijinja, where it ascends to the sky and return a generation later. So that's a cool thing that happens there. The Sogan Grassland, which is semi-autonomous, officially it's part of the Sakakabe province, but it's semi-autonomous. It's in the far north of the country and south of Forest of Spirits, but it's left to the native Otari and Umongo barbarian people to rule. So the native people of those areas basically are let to do their own thing. Then there is the Higashita Coast, which is officially part of Hyusai province. But the village in this coast look more to the kami of the Saseuraigai Forest for guidance. So, they are also semi-autonomous. But let's talk a little bit more about some of these things, like the various regions and forests. And this is, we'll talk about religion in a second. This is one of the Tianian deities, or the Minkai deities, I should say. So, there are a couple other settlements I can mention, and some places to talk about. I can talk about the two forests, an island, a lake, and we've talked about, well, couple of these places already with the semi-autonomous regions, so we don't really have to go into those much. But let's talk about some of these things, though, because there's more than this there. It's isolated from Tian Xia. Its only neighboring land is the Forest of Spirits, and the kami that inhabit it are interested in conquest. To the east stretches the vast Okayo Ocean, and to the west, while the west the Zaido Gulf separates Minkai from the rest of Tian Xia. It is a strong link with the distant continent of Vastia, thanks to the path of a Genhai, a trade route that goes across the crown of the world that ends in the region. So that helps a lot too. So two other cities to mention are, or in this entire area, is Hyosai, which is on the Okaya Ocean. I talked about Hyosai. Why did they talk about that? It's a separate one. That's a separate one. Weird. There's Nagara, which is a small town in southern Minkai. That it's an important trading post at the crossroad of three important highways. So it's important to note. We will talk briefly about the Saseuraigai Forest. It's a forest that sits within the Higashita Coast region of Minkai, sandwiched between the Okaya Ocean and the Washi River. It was said to have been the home of Okirori Tomoko, a hero who was able to negotiate peace between Hiro and the Kami Lord of the Forest. And those brave enough to walk the paths of the forest now have been granted advice in the form of visions and whispers from the resident Kami. We can talk briefly about the Forest of Spirits. It's an immense pine woodland located below the Arctic Circle in the continent of Tian Xia, and it's the primal birthplace of nature spirits known as Kami. It's kind of on the edge there, and it is important to mention because it's sort of in the region there. The subarctic environment, so it's almost always covered in snow. It lies east of the nation of Hangul and north of Minkai, and it separates Minkai from Tian Xia. It's a distance of 1,200 miles separates Hangul through Minkai through the forest. The massive pine trees dominate the forest, and they're so tightly packed together, there's practically no undergrowth. There's no cities within it, but small communities of kitsune can be found deep within it. And towards the south of the forest grows a dense and small human settlements that are found in the outskirts of the forest. The Spirit Road hugs the coastline, is on the outskirts of the forest, and is one of the busiest trade routes in all of Tian Xia. It's dotted with small settlements who have carefully negotiated pacts and treaties with the forest Kamis to allow them to gather resources and hunt in specific parts of the forest edge. These settlements honor their Kami neighbors by building, maintaining, and making generous offerings at shrines that dot the entire length of the Spirit Road. So, yes. And of course I mentioned the samurai who basically gave the boundary of here. So, yes. But that is the Forest of Spirits, which is the northern end. I mentioned the Gaito Islands, which are the streams south of Minkai and the Soruri Gulf. On paper, it's a feudal domain of the Kinoshita family, but in practice, its coves and shoals are havens for pirates. Young Kinoshitas claim that they have no ties to the family, while the patriarch is said to either be senile or either too senile to combat the pirates or their secret leader. The largest lake in the area is Lake Tsukishizuka, which is in North Minkai. It has northern stretch along the Kyoji Mountains, its easternmost border. Let's see here. And I mentioned the river. I mentioned the Kamifushi Mountains a little bit. Very mineral rich, very important. Talked about them. And of course I mentioned all these things there. So let's talk a little bit about the religion and the Minkai deities. So the Minkai deities include the goddess Shizuru, from whom the Emperor Shiguri claimed descent. They also have a large pantheon of deities. Most popular is the fertility goddess of Daikitsu, Desna, the goddess of the North Star, Fumiyoshi, Lord of Embi, Desna being a deity that you might recognize if you know stuff from Pathfinder. It is a common deity for a lot of things. General Susumu, the Black Daimyo, Heifeng, Duke of Thunder, Iori, the Enlightened One, Shaylin, Lady of Chrysanthemums, and Sukiyo, Prince of the Moon, and Yamasumi, Lord of the Mountain. Whew. So some of these deities are recognizable as deities in other regions, certainly. Things like Iori and Desna show up in a lot of things like Avasti and Grund. And some of the other ones are definitely... Shaylin, too. Have worship in other areas of the Tianian continent. Things like Heifeng, who has worship through large portions of Tianzi. And then there's other ones that are a little bit more personal, of course, to the region. You can say, like, who I'm showing off here is Sukiyo, the moon deity. He is the brother of Fumiyoshi and the paramour of Shizuru, who is the one that basically defined Minkai as the goddess of the sun, honor, ancestry, swordplay, patron of samurai nobles, and Tsukuyomo is the deity of moon, jade, and spirits. And that's a depiction of him there. So, there you go. There's some deities in Minkai. You can look more into them if you wish to, and their complex connections of stuff. And anyway, I think that really brings us to the end of Minkai for now. As I said, this is one that, honestly, I've provided a pretty good chunk of information about it. Yeah, I gotta be honest, a lot of the provinces and cities we don't know a lot about. A lot of the regions we know a little about. And there are plenty of other countries that are like this throughout Golarion. And how much will we learn from the Tian Xia book? I can't say. Will I need to revisit it? I get a feeling I probably won't have to come back to this in the future, and that I hope you've learned enough about this, because hopefully this was enough that was provided through the various sources of it. But who knows, maybe I'll revisit this in the future. We'll see when the book comes out. For now, though, I hope you enjoyed learning about it and this interesting culture, and yeah, there is a big part of a lot of Tianian cultures, just like a lot of cultures that are seen in places like Avasti and Grund that compare to cultures we have. There's no denying that. And this is one of those ones that you can kind of scream, hey, I kind of know that. That sounds familiar. It's its own thing, though. And you have to kind of remember that it's got some similarities, and diving into it really gives you the similarities and differences a lot more. It's still interesting to learn and talk about. But if we visit Minkai in the future, I'll do it as a kind of like extra on its own, something, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But for now, enjoy it, learn it, and maybe you either want to be a Tianmin, a Tianian from Minkai, or visit the place at some point in time. Both are big options. Keep them in mind. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed learning today and diving into it and getting an idea of all this. If you're joining me live on Twitch or you're even on YouTube, hey, today's question, which I'd say put it up on YouTube now, is, have you ever used Minkai or been a Tianmin? That's a question. And, like, have you done the adventure path? That's a big question. Hey, have you played this adventure path that involves it? The Jade Regent. I haven't, but, you know, maybe you have out there. Make sure, if you are here, to give a follow on Twitch. If you're joining me on YouTube, a subscription there is great. The comment, of course, below, a like, ring the bell if you want to see more stuff. Very similar to just there technically is a bell on Twitch too, so you can always ring that to get, you know, notifications when I go live. I have to remember, ring a bell on both sites, I should mention. I have social media at Discord and Twitter.com. Just gives my schedule most of the time and basic little bits of information and stuff when it comes out from my brain. Yeah, I think that's all the shout-outs I need to do. If you're looking for more tabletop-related stuff, I do streams of it live, which go up on YouTube, usually a day or two later. Hey, YouTube, definitely. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Tuesdays, Thursdays are early afternoons. Saturdays, late morning. Generally speaking, Tuesdays, Thursdays, sometime between 1 and 2. Saturdays, usually between 11 and noon. I also have a live play of Pathfinder on Wednesday evenings at 9 p.m. Bucket Shackled Sea. Check that out. That's still going on now, or check it out in archives if you want to check out the entire. It's been going on for a couple years. Discussing tabletop on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Tabletop discussion show. Go over news and some deep topics related to tabletop in general. I think that's all the shout-outs I need to do for all these things, because I've got to try to remember them and give you this information so you share and learn more and enjoy it and just dive into these worlds. And if you want to see more Pathfinder, it's usually Thursdays. Those are the streams, are Thursdays. And then it comes out a few days afterwards. Anyway, I'm going to get going for today. I'm going to say to all of you out there who join me either live or later on YouTube, thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I bid all of you out there a wonderful and deep farewell.